All right, everybody, welcome. This is The Reckoning. It is the 23rd of June, I'm sorry, the 22nd of June, 2026, and we will begin in about 15 minutes. But for those of you that are joining, I'm happy to have you here. And we will start bringing people up. Rock's sending you a co-host invite right now. All right. Hey, Nick, check text messages. So, all right, everybody. Again, bear with me as we get the studio cranked up so we're all learning and growing. Rocks, how do you hear me? Rocks?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you loud and clear. Actually, turn her up a little bit, please. Say something again, Rocks. Give me a countdown from 10.
10, 9, 8.
Yeah, that's good.
7.
Stop right there. Okay,
6.
got you both. All right, everybody. So, Rocks, take a look at topic 4. I don't know that we're going to get there because I want to have a lot of discussion on the bottom end topics from the rant. The other thing is, I gave you access to the Reckoning chat on X. Did you see Dr. A's message today?
Not yet. I'll go look.
Okay, yeah. All right, so what did you do this past weekend?
I did actually get some of the grass cut this time.
Oh, so you actually mowed your lawn. Yeah, see, I'm lazy and
I had a weed eat.
I'm lazy and I pay someone to do it, but the back end of last week, I worked my tail off. I'm talking really long days, 16 to 18-hour days, but it was necessary for financial recovery after being down in Houston for a week. So, anyway, what else is up, Miss Rocks?
Sorry, I'm trying to share the chat out to all the group chats and stuff. My bad. Nothing much. I was just, besides that, trying to take care of life and get stuff in order, but good job. Because I've been sicker a lot, so that's why I haven't been able to get to mow. So what I did was I weed-eated the lawn. That way it wouldn't clog my mower when I go to mow it. But it's been raining here like crazy. Are you guys getting that weather over there in Texas?
Yeah, this morning we had a pretty good thunderstorm, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, in terms of hail. But I guess it was Friday morning, they sent out text messages saying that pretty much we needed to be building arcs and, gathering the animals 2 by 2 because we were going to have flash floods everywhere that were life-threatening. I swear, every time they start telling us about the weather, it gets more and more dramatic. I mean, I don't know who is more of a drama queen, a soccer player or a Texas weatherman. I mean, it's honestly ridiculous. So,
I thought you were going to say libtard.
well, that goes without saying. I'm pretty convinced that you have to be mentally ill to still be a Democrat in today's society. But we're going to talk about that as we go through a lot of the things on the rant today, as you've seen. But I had another. I don't think you're on Facebook, but I had another post where I was talking about a guy that's running for Denton County Clerk, and he had posted, he's a communist. I mean Democrat, same thing. And by the way, if I use those words, I mean them interchangeably. Communism and Democrats are the exact same thing these days. But he's running to be a communist candidate here in Denton County. And he had posted his little, I'm so happy to celebrate Pride Week. And so I talked about his sin and mental illness. And there was a lot of responses for that. I did have somebody that has been a lifelong friend DM me on Facebook and say, hey, I can't do this. I can't be your friend anymore because I got a gay son. But, she's a good person. And I said, hey, no judgment from me. I'm just making, social commentary in the same way that they do. But anyway, so be it. She is still a good person and always will be. She just doesn't agree with me politically. And, that's, I think, another thing that we've lost in our society these days. Just because you don't agree with everything I do doesn't mean you're the devil. I mean, there are plenty of Republicans that don't agree the same things that I do. Like my good friend Southern, who is just here. Southern sending you a co-host invite. Glad to have you. And I'm not sure if we're going to have Dr. A or not. Her cryptic text message was Interesting. I don't know if she's lack of sleep was driving her into insanity or what. What do you think, Rox? Do you have a chance to read it yet?
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked. I was like, oh my God, I hope she's okay. And yeah, that must be tough. I'm pretty sure she's probably still sleeping.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'm not really planning on having her here, which is why I need you to take a look at that fourth topic and add anything you did. Because it would make sense to me. I mean, if I was an EOD tech and I could blast a bomb up with a laser, that would be pretty ideal. So anyway, just saying.
They're a little bit more complicated than that sometimes. But
No,
yes,
they're
there
not.
are ways to use them.
I mean, I've seen that on TV,
Yes,
so
they
it's got to
are.
be 100% accurate. It's kind of like, I just drop a laser guided bomb and it automatically goes where I want it to. There's no planning, no skill, nothing that goes with that. All right, Southern, welcome. How do you hear me?
I hear you perfectly. How are you?
I got you loud and clear. You pixelated just at the start, but that could have been an X thing. Give me one more sentence.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so I've got you loud and clear now for sure. So if we had said 4x in reply to you, would you have known what that meant?
No.
All right, so military, and Rox, I'll be honest with you, I don't know the origin of this. I just know that 5x is good, and anything less is bad. So, but you say, how do you hear me? And you say 5x5, but I don't know the origin of 5x5. That might be something interesting to look at. Both of you take a good look at the question of the day, please. That way you're ready to answer it. So, anyway, how was your weekend, Southern?
It was amazing. Don't do anything.
Those are the best weekends. I would say that my weekend was mostly like that, but the problem was I still had leftover work from Friday. And then, both my wife and I have elderly parents, so we were trying to make sure that we went to go see them on Father's Day. Did you go see your father, or do they live in state?
No, my father does not live in the state. So
Okay.
I was unable to visit with him, but I visited with some of the kids.
Now, does he live in Bavaria? Because, you are the, what is it? You're the poster child of white supremacy? No?
Yeah,
So.
we'll see he lives there.
Okay. Awesome. And Rox, forgive me, I can't remember, are your parents, I know your mom's still alive. What about your dad?
My sperm donor is not alive anymore. My stepfather is.
Wow.
But yeah, my parents are good.
Wow. Okay, now tell me how you feel about that in one phrase. All right, Dr. A, I sent you a mic. Jim, if you want one, grab it. Rox, if you could send him one. We're about 1 minute from our usual question of the day.
Yes, guys, and if you don't mind, please share it out. Post it in your DM group. Quote post it if you want. We'll go in and repost it and everything. We are going to be going live with Colonel Larry Brock here in about 6 minutes. So if you have anything you want to add, come up. He's going to go through the question of the day. I'm going to start posting the topics and what we're going through. So interact with him. Even though it is a live show, you can also ask questions. Just come up and raise your hand, and we'll get you in here.
All right. One of the things that I did want to talk about is Game of Thrones. I can't remember. Are you guys fans or not?
Yeah.
All right. So did you watch House of the Dragon last night?
No, I watched a couple of those. I'll go back and binge watch them eventually, I guess. But it's not the same as Game of Thrones, but it's still cool as hell, and I'm a nerd. So yeah, I eventually will be binge watching all of those series too.
All right. Yeah, I absolutely recommend it. It was pretty cool. I still want a dragon. The things I would do with it, probably it's best that I don't have one. What about you, Southern?
I'm the same way. I generally tend to wait until there's a few episodes out so I can binge watch them all at the same time.
All right, Dr.
But I
A?
have seen the first 2 seasons.
Awesome. All right, so you didn't dial into the premiere either. Dr. A, what about you?
Nope. I wasn't. I don't even know Game of Thrones.
You're missing out, but like Rock said, the last season, just don't even bother. The other thing is obviously Dutton Ranch that's occupying our time right now. And I'll tell you once again, I am out on Supergirl, given the comments from the weekend. So we've got Superman, which is my favorite all-time superhero. I like that franchise, but I'm out on woke. I'm just done with it completely. So now they've ruined Superwoman, and they've also ruined, the Odyssey or the Iliad coming out this summer. All right, we are 4 minutes from getting started. Let me see. Dr. A, I don't see you up in the notes, so I'll go ahead and read the question. The question of the day is, what is the greatest virtue? Now, I am a fan of Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor that wrote a lot on, he has a book called Meditations, which is basically discussions of virtue and how a man should act. Admiral James Stockdale attributed his ability to survive the Hanoi Hilton to his being a Stoic and to practicing the things that Marcus Aurelius preaches. Now, according to Marcus Aurelius, wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage were the 4 primary virtues that every man should have. Now, this isn't limited to just men, so I'm going to tell you that I'm going a different route on cardinal virtues, and it will be the subject of the rant, but I think a cardinal... But actually not really, because it does tie in. I think one of the cardinal virtues of a man is to stick to the truth even when it's going to hurt him to not do it. So that is courage that falls into that. So in your mind, Rox, what is the greatest virtue?
I was actually going to say courage, because courage kind of encompasses everything within all those virtues, in my opinion. Like, you have to have courage to have integrity sometimes in difficult situations. You have to have courage to face the biggest fears that of anything you face. Like, you could fear all kinds of stuff, and courage kind of encompasses all those virtues to me as the number one.
No, I do agree with you there. And they all tied together, they all link, they all overlap. So this is not a line, this is more of a circular area where I think all of those virtues must be present, and they must expand or shrink to fill out, your character as you go. All right, Southern, your turn. What do you think is the greatest virtue?
I would say prudence would be the greatest virtue, because without that, you can have no other. You have to have all those judgments and the practicality to apply it all before anything else.
So prudence is an interesting one, because I think it's a combination of both temperance as well as wisdom. Would you agree with that statement?
I do agree with it, and I've always wondered why they separated the two.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, Dr. A, your turn, ma'am.
Well, since you all picked so many of them with reasons why, I'm not going to go eeny, meeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'll say resilience. Having resiliency.
No, I definitely agree with that as well. It was kind of funny. I was talking about it with my men's group at church that I attend over the weekend, and, resilience and the ability to drive forward, when you've been hit, which you have, and I have too, and I share your pain. I feel your pain, to quote Bill Clinton. I totally get it. So you're absolutely right. That is an absolutely key virtue. All right, we are 1 minute before start, which is just fine with me. We will go ahead and get started. This is The Reckoning, 22 June 2026, show number 331, and 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. Now, as we just discussed, I said I find truth to be the greatest virtue. It is so important that our Savior said, I am the way, the truth, and the life in John 14:6. He said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:31. He set us free. The sum of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous rules endures forever. Psalm 119:60, which is the longest book in the Bible. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a minute. Proverbs 12:19. And then, of course, thou shalt not lie. Exodus 20:16, and I could go on and on. Now, militarily, the truth and the importance of it cannot be overstated. It is on a wall at the Air Force Academy, and you must memorize it and live it for the 4 years that you are there. It is the Cadet Honor Code, which says we will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate among us anyone who does. Why? Because lives depend on it. Excellence comes from it. The first thing you do as a flight leader, as a fighter pilot in the debrief, is to highlight your mistakes and do it truthfully so that all will learn, all can improve, and thus all will excel. In one of my squadrons, a technician was pencil whipping the parachute inspections to avoid work. And when we discovered it and checked the parachutes, 15 of the 18 would not have worked. The truth has been critical my entire life, but recently our society has turned from it. We refuse to seek it, we no longer glorify it, and in fact, we have turned on those who tell it. In our society today, truth is labeled as hate speech. Those who tell it are called racist and worse. So I thought I would amp up their hate just a little bit because I gotta be honest, I do like pushing a finger into that wound of the liberals and tell you 10 key truths. First, there is a God. There have been movies made saying God is dead, and church attendance in America has dropped 10% in the last 50 years. But he's alive, he's waiting, and soon every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. Second, America is the indispensable nation in the world. It was not founded in 1619 on the backs of slaves, but rather in 1776 on the brain of men who had been classically educated in liberal thought, and I mean that in the overall definition to where men should actually control their fortunes. All right, we have led mankind on a 5,000-year leap forward. Before America, man traveled on horses and carts as he had for centuries. Now we travel in spaceships, airplanes, and it's not stopping. All right. We have saved freedom from extinction 3 times in the last century, and we must reawaken our martial spirit to deal with the democratic enemies of the state and Muslims the same way we dealt with the Comanche. Diversity is not a strength, it is a weakness. Unity of command and purpose has led to the greatest American triumphs. Now, in that unity of purpose, there are many different races. So don't try and paint me with your brush. Victory in World War II and placing a man on the moon were the 2 greatest singular triumphs of this nation so far. Diversity will not lead us into anything other than poverty, crime, and ruin. Unity of purpose will lead us to make the 21st century, again, an American century, and will bring victory over and over. Fourth, America is a Christian nation. Let me quote John Adams. The general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. I will avow that I then believed and now believe that those general principles of Christianity are as eternal and immutable as the existence and attributes of God. A little more from him. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And we're seeing it stretched right now because we have turned as a nation from our Creator and His rules. All right, the next one, truth number 5, the LGBTQIA plus ampersand, $, and sign, etc., or whatever other letters they've added to this week, alphabet mafia is a cancer in our society. And their sinful, mentally ill screechings must be stopped. I mean, if I told men in the 1940s that drag queens would be allowed to sexually gyrate in front of children, they would rightly castigate us as weak and cowardly. And can you imagine the response of a 1940s American man to a drag queen if he was transported forward in time? Number 6, the land we are on is ours by divine right of conquest. There are no land acknowledgments necessary. Almost 20,000 Americans lost their lives to the Comanche and other Indian tribes as we conquered this continent. Truth number 7, the Muslims are here to destroy America. Here are their own words from captured Muslim Brotherhood documents. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process. With all the word means, the Ikhwan, Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. To that I say, over my dead body, and in hoc signo vinces, which means in his sign I conquer. It was the motto of the Knights Templar. It's inscribed on the inside of my watch, and I flew with it in combat against the infidel. Now, this month, I want to celebrate a historical occurrence. In the month of June, Vlad Tepes, a leader of a small Wallachian princedom, impaled Hamza Bey's scouting force of 20,000 Turks. This caused the Turkish Sultan, Mehmed II, to flee in terror. I heard recently from someone, and it's worth thinking about, deportation of Muslims is the moderate option. The eighth truth that I'm going to preach today: abortion is the murder of an innocent human. 63 to 65 million Americans have lost their lives since Roe v. Wade occurred. 1/3 of that number being killed were black Americans. Margaret Sanger, the racist who wanted to cleanse America through eugenics, would be proud. I'm sorry, Margaret Sanger, if I didn't say that. Margaret Sanger was a socialist, and she would be right at home in the modern Democratic Party and its socialism. The ninth truth: the Democrat Party is evil and is working for the destruction of America. On every issue pertinent to modern America, they are on the wrong side of it. They want to murder our children, and if they survive, they want them trans. They want to destroy righteousness through faulty academia and cultural Marxism. They were the party of slavery, of the KKK, of Jim Crow. They are the sole reason we have not politically won a war since World War II, having lost in both Vietnam and Afghanistan. The fruits of the Democratic Party are seen in cities full of homicide, rape, drug use, and homelessness, and they need to be outlawed in the same way that we treated the communists. Number 10, the world despises a strong America and resents our wealth and power. Not the people of the world, but the governments of the world. It is our job to give the American dream to our children. To do that, we need to expand. Again, I am a believer in social Darwinism. We either continue to expand or we die. To do that, America should acquire Western Canada, Greenland, Venezuela, and all of those countries need to have the stars and stripes flying over their capital and their citizens welcomed as new Americans. Expand or die. It is a biological imperative that extends to us. Now, other things that need to be labeled as hate speech, other things that are true, but the left has labeled as hate speech. First, man-made global warming is a hoax. It is true. Second, the 2020 election was stolen. Third, the FBI is a terrorist organization. Number 4, only 3% of Americans will fight for our nation. That number has always been true unless there is a compulsory draft. All right, and I am so tired of this pithy statement. Hate has no home. And then fill in the blank with your city and state. Literally, because it worked in the Frisco mayoral contest, I saw a state Democratic Party post, I believe it was an ex-post for the Texas Democratic Party, touting cisgender Jimmy, which is James Tallarico, as, a candidate saying, hate has no home in Texas. Yes, it does. All right. Men cannot and never will be women. Men cannot and never will be women. Trans people are merely cosplaying in a much more expensive way, backed up by the medical and drug companies, or industrial complexes, I should say. All right, this last one, you ready? I'm going to make everybody mad. Israel is our ally and worthy of being defended. I've said it before, I'll say it again. They have fought and fought and fought. The second the state was announced, 6 Arab countries invaded, and they prevailed. Okay, we have the 1967 war, the 1973 war. We have the Intifada. It goes on and on and on. I am telling you right now, the state of Israel will never fall again. So you either join with God's team or you're on the wrong side of it and it won't work out well for you. So those are a few of the things, the pithy sayings, the 10 truths that I think are important. So I'd like you guys to rip them to pieces or to add to them. So I see you in the notes, everyone but Southern. So I would like you guys, is there one that I missed? Is there something that the left views as hate speech, but in reality is honestly truth?
You
Rox?
said Southern or me first?
All right, go ahead, Rox.
I think you kind of covered them all because I wrote down a few of them, like men can't have babies. Pretty sure you said that. There's only 2 genders, not 67. Just because we don't think kids should be exposed to, trans drag shows that, were suddenly transphobic or homophobic and stuff like that when that's not true at all.
I'll be honest with you. I could care less what you do, but I don't want you in front of our children. That's the way I feel about it. Now, your creator, he does care, and you will be held accountable for what you do. But, there's nothing I can do about that. Southern, what are your thoughts? Or what did I miss?
I don't think you really missed anything. I think you covered them all. The only thing that I've seen arising is they're trying to change the family structure, whether it be single parent homes or now these 3, 4, 5 parent homes. Like, I don't understand all this stuff now.
Now, when you say 3, 4, 5 parent homes, what I'm going to assume is maybe families are living together, and I still mean nuclear families, but because of cost. Okay,
No.
So you're talking like multiple partners in the same marriage.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now they're all living together and raising the quote-unquote family as one. So there's like 2 moms or 2 dads or however you want to structure it. Sometimes there's 1 mom, 4 dads, or 1 dad, 5 moms.
Okay, again, I've got to...
It's a little ridiculous.
We've got a formula that works. Man, woman, patriotism, hard work, discipline, obedience. Why are we straying from it? What's wrong with us? All right, Dr. A, what about you? What did I miss?
I can't think of another one. When you went through and you said, did you say service should be compulsory? How did you say that one?
I did not. And I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of torn on that. And Gurpanda, I'm going to ask your opinion on this one as well. All right. Again, I've told you guys Starship Troopers is my favorite book. And in it, it was suggested that service become compulsory. And the problem with that is, I believe that when you put on the uniform, you're elevating yourself on the ladder of citizenship, meaning I am saying to the body en masse that I offer the only thing I have, my life, as a sacrifice to the nation. And so I don't think you can put that level of courage. I don't think it can be instilled. It's either there or it's not. And so I don't know that a draft has historically worked out well for us. I think given I'm going to call it the hardness of the modern soldier, where even a 111 Bravo, a basic infantryman, is a trained and skilled technician. I don't think that a draft really works anymore the way it did when you had smoothbore muskets. I mean, you have to be able to function and operate as a team, as an infantryman, and I don't know that draftees could do that. What are your thoughts on that, Rox? And then I'll come to you, Jim.
I don't know. I guess I could kind of see it both ways too. I do believe in that, but sometimes I think people don't know that they have that type of courage or that type of service or fulfillment until they're actually thrown into it, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So I can kind of see it working both ways, but yeah, the people that raise their hand and volunteer, especially during a time of war, the most honorable people on this planet, no matter what. I'm sorry, but that takes a lot of guts, and it's one of those things that I felt, and that was one of the first speeches they give you, is you came during a war. That is like so honorable, and thank you. Even if you didn't make it past basic training, you did something that most men and women cannot do in this world. So.
No, I'm with you on that. And again, my hand was right in the air every time. It always has been. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just warped. I think actually I do know why. And what's funny is the book that I wrote on pen and paper, and I haven't finished it yet. It's about 3/4 of the way through. While I was in prison, is now starting to be transcribed. And so, they're going through that right now and seeing the genesis of what I think caused me to be a patriot. All right, go ahead, Jim, and then I'll come to you, Dr. A.
Oh, hey, Larry. I would say that most of the stuff that you listed is all obvious. obvious, and one of them that's extremely obvious is illegal aliens. They seem to like to just call them migrants, and they don't acknowledge that they're here illegally and need to be deported. And they try to make out like they have the right to be here, they have the right to welfare, they have the right to vote, and they're literally here illegally. So I would say that's also one of the worst things, and Republicans seem to enable it as well.
No, I wouldn't disagree with you there. And again, I've always called them illegal invaders, and I think they truly are. And again, they are a drain on our national resources. And you're saying, why national? Well, not only because we're having to deport them nationally, but I mean, you look, all these red states, good grief. All of these blue states, California, Tim Walz and his crowd are basically asking for federal handouts as they engage their fraud machines. So again, we see it over and over again. But Jim, you're right. I think when you start losing the language, get ready to lose the argument. And so that is why I reject the phrase, undocumented migrant or undocumented worker. No, they're illegal invaders of our country. And if we stick with them, it causes us to think of them in a certain way. And that's why the left wants to control the language through academia. Go ahead, Dr. A.
And yes, it is their goal to shift our language there, which is what happened in Europe, etc. No, I asked the question earlier if you stated that one because I was going to say I disagree for the reasons that you said. We cannot force everyone to be in a place where they're able to serve. However, I do believe in compulsory service to the nation, even if not through the military. I feel like we have made college a goal, so much so for youngsters that most are not ready at that level. And in Denmark, you actually graduate high school at 17, not 18. And at 17, I honestly think we should put everyone through compulsory service of civic or national military service of some type. I do believe that youngsters need to give back to the community that they're being taught that they should only be taking from. But I think it starts with going back and putting true civics and virtue lessons back into education again, so that people have pride in this community that they're going to be assisting through their service. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Again, it gets to I'm not going to say you're right, because again, I can see it argued both ways. You've got the Rock's argument that maybe you'll awaken something inside someone, and then you've got me saying, you can't inculcate this into somebody that's there. I do think there would be benefit to what I'm going to call an initial training program, where you at least teach them to responsibly fire a weapon. I'm going to say march in formation, and maybe basically understand why the military's there. I would almost call it like a 6-week class on constitutionality and citizenship, coupled with a little marksmanship in there and discipline. I see that as being a really good option. What I would like to see, honestly, is some class like that put into a school curriculum somewhere, and see if we actually produce better citizens, which should be our in-state goal of our education system. As a matter of fact, today, down in Austin, and again, Rox, that's for the people managing the board. So, and again, let me get back to something. All politics are local. Okay, so I'm going to ask all of you to dial into your local political machine and make sure that your school boards are teaching what you want, that pornography is removed from your school libraries, that's not in your community libraries. We have a terrible city council here right now. We've got a terrible mayor, all right, and I am going to be exposing them for all the corruption that I know they're going to continue to do. So I'll be honest with you right now. I feel like the candidates I support the most are losing, including myself, Dr. A, the mayoral candidate I liked, but I'm standing on truth and virtue. All right, I am standing on an unmoving rock, and I know that the tide will change. Go ahead, Southern.
I just want to point out that these are the same children that are on SSRIs, have mental health issues because it's on the absolute rise, and they would never qualify for the military that you guys now want to train to fire weapons.
Yeah, a great point. I mean, now I've already said, and I think I'm on record, if you go back through the shows, that if you're on SSRIs, possibly because of the psychoactive chemicals in them, we need to look at your possession of weapons because you are mentally unstable. But again, see, anything like that scares me. Like, people have asked me, and again, you guys know I believe firmly in my heart that Jake Lang is a federal asset. He's a federal agitator. He is no good for America, but he just got banned from Texas by a judge. I have problems with a citizen being banned from an entire state. So again, whereas I applaud it in the micro scale, I rightly and justifiably fear it on the macro scale. Oh, I'm sorry, Colonel Brock, you can't stay in Texas anymore because you're a conservative Republican. Again, you got to watch that. That's why, I would say that I am increasingly on guard against an expansionist state in protection of our civil liberties. All right. The last thing I'll say on this is we have to embrace the truth. We have to stand strong for our values, and to do that, it requires brave men and women willing to call the left out on their lies, and they are lies. That is what will save the nation. So I'm asking each of you to fight the evil lies that they spread all times. I'm telling you right now, you will not convince the purveyor of the lie on social media, but you might change the mind of somebody reading it. So that's why, as much as it feels good, and I'm being a hypocrite because I just hammered some people over the weekend on Facebook because I just couldn't help myself anymore. When you call a fighter pilot stupid things, he's going to respond back in a very aggressive manner. But if you can do it in a way to try and persuade that squishy middle, that's what really needs to be done, because we're going to lose a lot of elections if we don't actually do it. All right. Moving on to the next topic, and I wish I had the production team queued to play Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, but I did not. I would like to talk about Keir Starmer's resignation, or another WEF leader being lost. First of all praise to God. The WEF-backed communist Muslim-loving leader of the UK has resigned. Just under 2 years after capturing the keys to number 10 Downing Street, the British Prime Minister's thrown in the towel after succumbing to an internal party mutiny following days of intense closed-door speculation. President Trump announced his resignation the day before. I'm kind of wondering if President Trump didn't. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. I'm just saying. I think President Trump had enough of his garbage, because he said, and I quote, Keir Starmer will resign as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He failed badly on two very important subjects: immigration and energy. Open the North Sea oil. I wish him well, President DJT. Now, stepping up to the lectern outside Downing Street on Monday, a visibly defeated Starmer delivered the inevitable verdict to the press, saying, I will resign as the leader of the Labour Party. Labour Party, Democrat Party, Communist Party, same thing. All right. He said, and I quote, the question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election, Starmer confessed. I've heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. All right, not bad. This is where he gets into lies. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision. Now, the man most likely to be his successor is a guy named Andy Burnham, who is the current mayor of Manchester and just won an election to become a member of parliament. And in his campaign victory speech, he said the following nauseating phrase, which I think we're going to hear so much we're going to get sick of it. Voters choose Labour's campaign of hope and optimism over division and hate. They can just honestly, Mom, I don't know how to say this. I'll just say copulate off with this little phrase. I'm done with it, okay? You are the party of division and hate. You unleashed hordes of immigrants living off the British taxpayers who pay your salary, who elected you, and you brought them in. Then you allowed the British police to lock up people that were just complaining about the government. You did nothing while Muslims raped British women. You did nothing to support the United States when we asked for help to deal with the Muslim state to help you get your oil. You are a disgrace as a man, and you should be remembered as a worthy successor to Neville Chamberlain in terms of courage. Now, a court in Scotland recently ruled that men cannot be placed in women's prisons. We've seen mass protests throughout the UK. Perhaps some sanity is returning. I think, though, unless we see armed actions against the Muslim in the UK, they will eventually succumb and become part of the caliphate. They need mass deportations in the UK worse than we need them here. Now, another labor leader is really just going to be glitter on the feces of bad socialist policy. They need to change parties and go with Reform UK and Nigel Farage. It is interesting to see freedom waxing worldwide while I fear that it is waning domestically. We have to get out and work for the Republican candidates or we're in trouble. Go ahead, Jim.
Just two things to say to that, Larry. I totally disagree with you about Reform UK. I think the only party in the UK that makes any difference is Restore UK and Rupert Lowe. And every other party is complicit in protecting rapists, including Reform UK. I think Nigel Farage is a British version of a rhino, and I would never go anywhere near Reform. Second, I would say this. I am shocked because I know tons of people in the UK. I lived there for 15 years. Most of them, when they're confronted with the Rupert Lowe report on the 250,000 girls that were raped by Muslim rape gangs, their response is that they don't believe it. And the reason they don't believe it is because the media there is so good at propaganda that none of them have heard about this. So they all think Tommy Robinson and anybody that is pushing any of this storyline is like radicalized and just making up lies against the government. And I don't really know how you get around the UK propaganda in their news media because their brainwashing, I don't know, we think it's bad here in America. Their brainwashing there is even better than it is here. And I'll just end with that. Those are my thoughts on it.
All right. First of all, I will be honest with you. I have not really looked into that party that you just mentioned in enough detail, but I will do so. Thank you for the prompt to do that. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, can you imagine, 250,000 British women were raped by Muslims and they did nothing? I mean, you want to talk absolute ballless behavior from British men? Are you kidding me? Your women are being raped by invaders and you do nothing? Is there anything worse in a man than not protecting women? I guess not protecting children. All right, let's go to Squirrel. I saw your hand up, but co-host privilege. I'm going to go to Dr. A and then Southern because I think that's the order I saw you guys in.
So I was going to say, I'm glad to hear Jim say that there are men with honor that remain. They just are brainwashed. I'm not so sure that that's good to have men with honor with a blanket over their head, but I was to the point where I felt like there were no reasons left to try to save Britain. They didn't save themselves and they're not saving their women. So I'm glad to hear there might be a chance of survival. I'll leave it there.
All right. No, you're absolutely right. I need to look into that party. Thanks, Jim. And again, my mistake of not knowing that to begin with. Go ahead, Southern.
They actually did worse than that, Larry. They actually blamed the women, would give them then abortions and contraceptions, and then turn them back into their abusers to be abused all over again.
Okay, when any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, if that was to occur here, I would actually be calling for armed insurrection. I mean, and again, Why can't the Brits wage an armed insurrection against their government? Because they gave up their arms. The Second Amendment is the most critical amendment because without it, you don't have anything. All right. And speaking of that, did you see where Keir Starmer was trying to pressure the social media companies to give the BBC primacy when they were putting out content to fight disinformation? In other words, to fight the truth. And Southern, so you're saying that the British government would give the victims of rape abortion pills or abortions and then give them back to the rape gangs?
Correct.
Wow. I mean, and okay, again, we have a lot of tall trees and a lot of short ropes that if that was to occur in the United States, that's what should happen to people that rape women. Vigilante justice. Have at it. Knock yourself out. All right. Go ahead, Squirrel.
Okay. I feel like saying a lot, but I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I can. There is obvious things that we can see at work in the world right now. The Western hegemony is not just some mere idea. There's actually bricks that's going on this block. There's this collusion that isn't necessarily officially recognized, which is CRINC, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. But BRICS is mostly, what do we have? Alexander Dugin, Vladimir Putin, China, Jinping, Brazil, South Africa. It's now expanded also. Okay, so they are literally going after dismantling the USA and Western hegemony, including Israel, in order to install their own new world order dynamic. And it's like actually watching this happen. You can find and prove these ties. It's not just like something, but in order to fully like disbelieve this, like to some extent, to ignore the massive amount of evidence towards that end, like it almost requires some sort of like brainwashed into some idea of Jewish cabal leading the world around kind of thing, like that the USA is so corrupted by them. But then that just ties back into the whole Islamist blood libels and tropes that they've been peddling for hundreds of years against Israel that would be, as it is now, as a nation state, before it even was, and against the Jewish people. So you got this giant monster of like 1-point-something billion people that's saying for the longest time, oh, look at this tiny 0-point-something% of the population of the world is controlling the world, when it's really behind the communists, the Islamists, the democratic socialists, and these vain philosophers that are driving this dismantling of the current dynamic of the world power in order to insert their own. And I'm saying this like I feel so strongly about this and all of the accumulative knowledge of information that I've gathered over many years to look at this from a top-down view, to just look and say, hey, this is what's going on. I feel like there's a giant risk game being played out in the world right now, and guess who owns like a third of it? Islam has about a third of it, and they're in collusion with the same ones that I mentioned as well, CRINC and BRICS. It's right there in front of us, and you can look into the underpinnings, the false dichotomy, the criticisms. They say, oh, we have this problem with colonialization. The U.S. and Israel is the colonizers, and I'm like, for 1,400 years we've seen this destructive force take over a good portion of the world, but they're not the colonizers. They're not the empire on the world that will refuse to recognize themselves as a collective nation that's still broken up. Well, they have a lot of infighting. I can see that too. That's another thing. But like, so for real, it burns within me when we. Yep, I gotta.
Hey, listen, man, I totally get it. I understand it's frustrating. So what can we do about it? Well, right now, what I'm telling you to do is vote Republican, but even they're failing us. I didn't turn the laser on our own party in terms of indisputable truths, but one is indisputable. There are Republicans that collude with Democrats to stop the right thing from occurring. And so, I'm right there with you. And in terms of the Red-Green Alliance, standing against America, standing against Israel, they only want to destroy America to get at Israel in terms of the Muslims. Now, in terms of the Red, they've wanted to destroy us from inception. So, I'm right there with you. But as you were talking, I was going through my mind do we have the will? And forgive me, I was watching Midway. I'll turn something on the TV just to while I'm working or while I'm putting the show together that I've seen, so that I can just kind of glance up at it. But do we have the will to actually win wars anymore? Somebody commented on my Canada post that America has only lost wars since World War II. They're not wrong. They're really not. But we could win them. We just don't have the will to drop the nuke on their capital that may be necessary to win it. And, had we had, I'm going to say Fallujah, join Hiroshima and Nagasaki in a 3-city club in 2003, maybe the war in Iran or Iraq would have stopped. Had we, the first time the Ayatollah Khomeini said, "Death to America, you're the great Satan," said, "Okay, fine, bye-bye," maybe we wouldn't have this problem. But then again, there's this part of me that wants to abide by Justinian warfare and protect the innocents. And a nuclear weapon does not do that. So at what point do you deal with the state? I mean, look at this. We have destroyed all of their armed forces. And I'll get to this, actually. It's in another segment when we're talking about the war. So we'll get to that in just a second. Susie, ma'am, I'm going to ask you to give me just a quick 30 seconds. Then I'll come to you, Dr. A, to close the topic out because we need to move to the next topic. So go ahead, Susie.
Well, first of all, stop calling them women. These are not women. These are young girls. When it comes to reform took over 5 or 6 years to gain any seats in Parliament. They would need 200. They were currently estimating that they could, if they had an election today, gain 245 seats out of 650. Restore is way too new at this point. So will we have anything better going on in the UK? Not until they start taking up pitchforks and knives and axes. And yes, the British men have no balls. You look at Belfast, you look at Ireland, you look at Scotland. Yeah, those boys got some balls. But the English, not so much. I tried to make it really short by talking
You
fast.
did fantastic, and you're absolutely right on that. And I don't know enough about Restore UK, but I do know that Reform is probably going to win because they have no faith in the Labour Party. Jim, I'll come to you again. 30 seconds, please, because I want to move next topics, and then Dr. A. Jim?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say I put Restore in the purple pill, and that is the party that Elan is planning on funding. They are the fastest growing party in British history. They are the only party that can make real change. If Reform win, nothing will happen. It will be like John Thune in the Senate.
I don't know enough about Restore, and I will tell you I've listened to Nigel Farage speak at CPAC last year when we were both there. So again, I thought more highly of him, but I will definitely do some digging. All right, go ahead, Dr. A, and then we're going to move to the next topic.
You asked if we have the will to win wars. I argue that the world doesn't have the will to let anyone win a war. If you look at what happened to Israel, they made the Palestinians, the people who attacked them, yes, it was their representation, but they made them the victims, so that when Israel went to defend itself, oh, don't hurt the people who hurt you. So I think we have a problem and a world that's upside down into what right someone has to defend their citizenry, their women, their people in general, and who indeed are the victims, or what are we doing a war for?
I'm with you again. You know, for those of you that study Clausewitz, war is just politics by more forceful means, and so I don't think we've really done the things necessary to win a war. Occupy the enemy's capital. I would have taken Iraq's oil until such time as the cost of the war was paid for, and every U.S. serviceman that lost their life was probably about $1 million worth of their oil. That's how mean I am. But then again, I am pretty mean as a snake. All right, let's go to topic 2. Now, one of my favorite T-shirts that I used to have when I lived in Saudi Arabia, and it's because I would go to these embassy parties with all of these Western Europeans who would wear Che Guevara shirts, was a Che Guevara shirt with a little Ghostbusters slash through him that said muerte, meaning he had been killed, which is what should happen to all communists. So I have, and I think Rox posted it in the pill, communism is the cancer of the world. So the tide is turning in Latin America. You just heard me say that freedom is waxing worldwide. All right, Starmer's gone, and it is waning here in America. Interesting. I don't know if that is a historical cyclical process. I highly suspect, actually, that it is. So right-wing and Trump-backed presidential candidate El Tigre, I guess his name is Abelardo de la Espriella, he won the presidency of Colombia, stating that he will cut taxes, reduce spending, crack down on crime, and reopen the oil industry to unleash Colombian energy. I didn't know Colombia had a lot of oil, but okay. I thought their primary product was nose candy. Anyway, so the streets of Bogota apparently erupted in celebration after it was announced that he'd won. And does it matter? Yeah, it does matter a little bit because of the drugs that come out of that country. But the bigger thing to me is look at what has happened since the CIA's little money pushing front, USAID, was dismantled by Elon Musk. Look at the map, and Rox, I hope you posted this in the pill. Bring it up into the nest if you haven't, or if it is in the nest, highlight which picture it is, as to what has happened since June of 2023. In June of 2023, we had 10 left-wing governments in South America and 3 right-wing governments, and now we have 7 right-wing governments and 6 left-wing governments. And I'm going to tell you, if the election in Brazil was honest, and yes, Bolsonaro got Trump 2020'd, I think you'd see that number be 8 and 5, but it's not. So that's where we're at right now because the CIA was still able to help the socialist candidate win. And you know, I sound like a moron saying that, but how many black pills have come true when it comes to the deep state? All right, the CIA and the FBI are not the friends of the American people, period. And you're not going to convince me otherwise. All right. This, to me, is indicative of what I call the Trump effect. All right, and it is something that the American people started to their great credit, and it is spreading freedom around the world. Now, it is our job to ensure that freedom does not lose its grip on America. How? By getting out and working in the local Republican Party to see that the communists do not win. You know, and let me just pause right there. All right, so I'm pausing for a second. There is a major push inside the Texas Republican Party for unity. The governor of Texas spoke about it. He had an elephant draped with unity walk through the middle of the Republican convention. Our party chair in Denton County, Texas, where I live, is a woman I greatly admire in terms of being a good Christian, and she is calling for unity. Go back to last week or the week before. I cannot be in unity with the sinful. I cannot do it. Cannot. I will tell you that I believe that 2 Republican leaders that are in our district, all right, that were elected, do not represent the district. One of them because they don't live here, and the other one because of personal failings that I want to absolutely verify so that I do not bear false witness against him, because the mere mention of it is enough to do the damage. Anyway, so I'm done with my pausing on that. Oh, and by the way, we've got the rep that I ran against that is really a rhino. So they're asking us to unify with people that are basically like John Thune. All right, John Thune's children are Democrats. They donate to Democrats. John Thune is a Democrat wearing Republican clothes. And why he is allowed to still be the leader of the Senate when he has done so little to get something through. I mean, without the SAVE Act, we are going to get crushed this fall. So I think probably next month, maybe the month after, you're going to see a slew of executive orders come out that are basically the SAVE Act. I don't know how President Trump is going to base those in law. That's his legal team's job, because you know it will be about a millisecond before it goes in front of some liberal POS Democratic judge on the D.C. circuit, who will once again insert his politics rather than the will of the American people. All right, again, we have a corrupt judiciary that is not doing our will. How can I be unified with these people? How can I be unified with the John Thunes? How can I be unified with the Jared Pattersons? I can't. I can't do it. My Creator has endowed me with a moral code. I can't do it. Can't do it. Now, does that mean I'm going to check the block for the Communist Party? Absolutely not. But there will be undervotes on my ballot because I cannot vote for people that I believe are actively working to destroy my country. And some of those bear the same political party label that I proudly wear. All right. So the Trump effect, Latin America. All right, we're seeing it possibly in Europe with the Starmer being gone. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and you know, Jim, you seem to be paying attention to British politics, but I don't remember hearing a call for a parliamentary election. Now, a vote of no confidence, I don't believe was triggered, and I believe Labour has enough seats in the parliament to where they do not have to call for a vote of no confidence. They can just replace Starmer. That's correct, isn't it?
Yep, that's what it looks like they're doing.
Okay. Susie, we'll come to you, ma'am.
Well, yeah, Labor has 409 seats, so no, they can't do a vote of no confidence. There are 650 seats. I think 365 is the majority, so no, they cannot.
All right, that is absolutely good. All right, Rock, Southern, or Dr. A, do you guys have anything you want to opine on, or do you want to move to the next topic, which is basically the war? All right, saw all three thumbs down. Thanks. That's actually a good code for that. All right, and by the way, I absolutely agree with you. And you know, this is something to consider as well. All right, foreign adversaries are smart in what they do to us from a propaganda perspective. All right, they absolutely do it all the time. All right, so it would be foolish not to think that the CRINK, and I love that acronym, by the way, is not actively working to undermine President Trump as we move towards the next election. So let's talk about the war. Now, Israel is mad that we didn't obliterate Iran, according to a survey conducted by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. 92% of Israelis believe that Iran came out ahead in the conflict and the U.S. brokered deal that followed. Even among voters loyal to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's conservative bloc, which is Likud, 93.1% said that Iran won, and 82.9% of respondents said that the 6-week military campaign against Iran left Israel's long-term security weaker, not stronger. Another 86% held a negative view of both the way the fighting ended and the way Washington negotiated the subsequent deal without meaningful Israeli input. Nearly 88% of Israelis believe their country fell short of its war aims entirely or achieved only partial success. I wish we could get voices from the East or back in the space again. Now, those were the goals. All right. Let's walk through what I believe the goals were of this war. All right. First, to dismantle Iran's nuclear program. Second, to neuter its missile arsenal. Third, to topple the regime in Tehran. Now, I don't believe that any of those were fully met, and neither does the Israeli public or the American public. Now, 69% of Israelis said that President Trump had handled the war poorly, and it was rated as either failed or poor, against just 10% that called it good or excellent. All right, that is a huge change in sentiment from his 2024 election win. Now, just 12% of respondents believe that Israel achieved most of its stated goals against Hamas and Hezbollah following the October 7th attack. I've got to ask, you know, what more could you do? You know, from an Israeli, we did everything except get their regime to change. To my knowledge, we've taken out all of their nuclear facilities. We've made a deal where they have to hand us their already enriched uranium. All right. So I don't, you know, their military is gone. I don't know how they're weaker as a result, or Israel is weaker. I mean, honestly, if I was an Arab country, I would be very concerned because the Iranians had the most modern Russian air defense systems and they were dismantled. I mean, I think we lost a total of 2 aircraft, one F-15E and one A-10 in the war. That's pretty solid. Now, a Qantas national poll of 1,000 U.S. voters found 43% strongly approve and another 13% somewhat approve of the preliminary U.S. MOU with Iran. Combined disapproval sits at just 13%. All right, so we wanted the war stopped. the Israelis didn't. So President Trump's doing what we want. And again, I said this last week, domestic politics. But I also said something else. All right. Now, the simple fact is the only way, I can't remember who said this. The simple fact is that the only way the Iranians get any resources, not a single penny, by the way, comes from the United States of America, under any circumstances. Why did that post twice? Sorry about that. Is if they comply fully and change their behavior. That was Vice President J.D. Vance. All right. Adding that Tehran's military nuclear program is still destroyed. And if Iran chooses to change course, compliance would bring a transformative relationship with the Middle East. But on X today, I read that Iran will again close the Strait of Hormuz due to Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon. Remember this, okay? And this is the key takeaway. You cannot make a deal with Muslims. They are faithless, feckless, and accursed. Since Richard III, all right, they don't keep their word with us. They get to practice taqiyya. They are allowed to lie according to their Bible. So what do I think? I think we didn't get the regime change, but we destroyed their military. But as I said before, the suicide bomber is their primary weapon. And until we are willing to terrorize them, they have no incentive to stop. The Muslim only understands fire and blood. Their holy book tells them that it is permissible, indeed encouraged, for their men to kill us, enslave our children, and rape our women. Iran did not win, but neither did we. What would I do? I would glass the coastline of Iran and let the ships flow through until we build a canal big enough in the UAE to where we don't need the Strait of Hormuz anymore. So I'm going to ask each of my co-hosts, beginning with you, Dr. A, since you've got your hand up, who won the war? Dr. A.
Okay, so A, technically there was no war, right?
Oh, we didn't declare it.
But if we take two steps back, Israel is still fighting Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon currently while we speak. Mm-hmm. It is believed that we may actually have dropped something last night. So I don't know that anything's over. The MOU did not solidify that something is over. The MOU was can we talk about talking about the talk of maybe being done. And Trump had the military pulled out from underneath him pursuant to Congress as of the end of May, right? So there is no conflict that was allowed to continue based on Congress.
How do you say that? They didn't pass the War Powers Resolution Act, correct? I mean, did I miss it? You were campaigning, and I was busy doing a whole bunch of stuff. But I mean,
I was not paying express attention because I was busy campaigning. But it's my understanding that they told him he could not continue.
I think they didn't pass it.
Yeah, I don't think it passed. I mean, I know the Democrats were trying to get it through, but I don't think it passed. So
right. So it did not pass. So he did not have their permission to declare war and continue going, right?
No, it doesn't work like that, meaning they have to invoke the War Powers Act to put a stop to it, I believe is how that works.
Okay, so at this stage of the game, what I understand is we're allowed to respond if someone attacks us, right? If someone attacks a military vessel or does some act against a military base or whatever, we're allowed to go, no, you don't, and thump them back, right?
I think it's completely up to the commander-in-chief and whatever powers he's delegated to the CENTCOM commander over there. I don't think there's been any statement of a cessation of hostilities other than President Trump wants it stopped. I don't think there's anything legally binding him or making him stop.
Okay, so I'll leave it at we're not in war. We didn't declare war. They're still misbehaving. They're going to continue to misbehave. I don't think we're done. I don't think we're leaving. And who won? Well, I mean, they think they win as long as they're still alive. I'll leave it there.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Rox, who won the war?
Well, I do agree with Dr. Angela here that it wasn't a war, it's just a conflict, okay? Because a war means we gave them the ability to fight back, and really we didn't. We squashed them like little bugs. I think in these also the difficult situations that we're in with the MOUs, the agreements, and trying to get them to play, we all play. No, they didn't. They will not play nice. That is why Trump did what he did, how he did it, as quick as he did it, to make sure no matter what, we win either way because we know they don't like to play ball. They're liars. Or, they'll say one thing and do another. I don't know if it's a translation gap. It's not. Or, they're just retarded. They are. But we win either way because their military and their ability to fight back like they used to have is gone. It's wiped. So we know they probably won't agree, but they also are going to be reliant and are getting the picture, but they're going to tell their people or whatever propaganda they want to push out anyway. No matter what, that is just what they do. But we still won either way. Even if they don't play nice and they don't play ball, cool, we'll just hurt you more. And it's just a pattern throughout history with them, unfortunately. It's like we already knew that, so he did what he did to make sure, no matter what they would do, that we still win either way.
I don't know how we. All right, tell me how you think we win either way, because they're going to continue to block the strait because we don't have the will to stop them. They're going to continue to fund terrorism. To me, all we really did is just destroy their armed forces. That's it. I don't see what else we achieved politically. How am I wrong?
Well, that's how we win. They don't have all of their ships are at the bottom of the ocean right now. Yeah. Their navy's gone. Their air power's gone. Now they will slowly try to bring it back, but they can't fight back. We already, like I said, we're going to crush them. And I think we just went either way because I think if they threaten this, Trump said yesterday or maybe the day before, we will hit you and hit you even harder.
Yeah, and, he's been saying that like every week, as he was trying to get that's my problem with the president saying things.
Well, he does smack them down sometimes. I'm just saying.
I know, but
I think he doesn't want to hurt the Iranian people who want freedom. I don't think he wants that, so he's trying. But at the same time, we crushed all of their abilities to fight back, which is win. And even if they don't play nice, they're going to have to, or their entire economy is going to go into the hole. It already is.
Yeah, but, it is. I mean, inflation's up 250%. There's a whole host of reasons. Honestly, I think again, they suck at war, but they're really good at not surrendering. All right, let's go to some hands. Susan, you had your hand up or Susie, you had your hand up for a while, and then we'll come to you, Swamp Marine.
Yeah. So first off, yeah, I agree. Not a war. Here's the other thing we have to take into account. We have a midterm coming up. Mm-hmm. We have to win that midterm. He did what he needed to do to make sure that they can't get a nuke. That was his goal. That goal was achieved. He's pretty much taken out all their military. They can't do much other than a few missiles here and there. Now, Hezbollah needs to be taken care of by Lebanon. That's their job. We need to force them to do that. Maybe the Syrians can help. I'm not sure. We're not in charge of Israel. Israel's going to do what it's going to do, and they have the right to defend themselves. But gas prices had to come down. Everything had to calm down. Yep. We've got midterms to win. If we don't win them, we're screwed.
No,
and those are calculations
right.
that are political. They must happen because if we don't win these midterms, we're really screwed. Now, in terms of Save America, the legislation and whatnot, I think you mentioned something about other executive orders. He's already got one out there. The U.S. Post Office is already making changes based on the previous executive order about monitoring who's getting what in the mail, which is a good thing. Especially for those of us on the West Coast where, everything goes by mail. We trust them wholeheartedly, 100%.
You bet.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, well, no, I get that. There's no question there. All right, go ahead, Swamp Marine.
First of all, thank you, sir, for letting me speak here, and Sir Panda and Dr. Angela and Southern. Okay, technically, we weren't in a war, but, and I hope I don't break up here, we didn't win anything as far as I'm concerned, and I don't think it was meant to win. I think as soon as the MOU was read, meaning they actually produced it for everybody to read, what was happening at the time was a timing thing. It was really weird the way they were, they got to release this first and release. I think there was something that happened at the very beginning of that, like releasing tankers and stuff like that was extremely important, and we'll find all that out later. So as soon as the MOC was MOA was officially read, it was already toilet paper. I agree with Dr. Angela on that. The MOU is nothing. I don't think it was ever meant to be anything but a timing thing for us anyway. I'm assuming, I'm hoping that is just a ruse, and I don't know if he's letting J.D. Vance hang himself, but I don't think there's anything ever supposed to be solidified with that thing. I think it's something else going on. Not sure what, but I think it's all planned for. I'm hoping anyway, and I can't think of the other points, but I honestly don't think it matters as much as what happened at the very beginning of it, because a lot of stuff was released as far as oil to Europe and Asia, and yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, because you said the thing at the beginning that I completely agree with Keir, that you don't win wars with Islam or Muslims unless you kill every one of them. I hate it. That's the way it is. I'm sorry. It doesn't sound nice or whatever, but there is no winning anything unless they don't exist anymore, because of their Quran and what they can do for Allah, and what Allah in their mind wants them to do is lie, cheat, and steal, rape the women, anything to get the 72 virgins and all that. And people in the West just don't get it. They don't understand it. And until we're willing to do that, there won't be a such thing as winning a war. And that's all I have.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just terrible that it has to come to that. You know, I mean, go back in time, 2001, the day after 9/11, Ann Coulter said, bomb their cities, kill their leaders, and forcibly convert them to Christianity. She's not wrong. We could go back to Richard the Lionheart at Acre. I mean, again, and I do that time and time. You cannot have peace with the Muslims. And what bothers me a lot is I have Americans arguing with me. Well, what about the Crusades? Okay, history, just read it, please. Please. I mean, Pope Urban said that the Crusades were a military response to the invasion of Europe by the Muslims. He said it, Urban II, when he started the crusade. And I can't get these people to actually just read basic history. And I love it when, well, you don't know history. Okay, clown. Yeah, I really kind of do. Added to that, you know, everything is so easy these days. Grok it. All right. It's easy. I don't understand these people. All right, I'm moving to the next topic, Swamp Marine, so sorry about that. Just bear with me. And the next topic is lasers and ray guns for all my friend. Now, whether it's data centers, critical infrastructure, stadiums, corporate headquarters, or military bases, the U.S. is absolutely unprepared to combat one-way attack drones. All right, and that's because they are cheap, they are scalable, and we don't have a good counter-UAS technology yet. The proliferation of low-cost drones across the Eurasian war zone, from Ukraine, Russia to the U.S.-Iran conflict in the Middle East, has permanently changed the course of modern warfare. Now, I will say this. I think we are way further ahead than we're letting on. We just don't tell people about it yet. And the reason I say that is, remember what that one guard for Maduro said, is that there were swarms of U.S. drones that came overhead when we came to get him. So again, that's our attack vector on it. But defending against them is an entirely different matter. All right. And what I think we've seen is, you know, one-way attack drones have been exposed, as they've been exposing a missing layer of affordable air defense around high-value assets, including military bases. I mean, look, I believe 25% of Russia's strategic bomber fleet was destroyed by Ukrainian drones. Can you imagine that type of attack here, where we have our bombers just sitting out in the open? All right. And that doesn't include our unprotected energy infrastructure, data centers that are growing, our ports, our stadiums, and corporate headquarters. What I would do is I would destroy our oil industry. It is our lifeblood of our nation. And if I could take out our refineries with a massive drone wave, that is exactly what I would do. Now, the race to secure high-value assets against drones is expanding, and we see it again and again. The U.S. Air Force last week moved to expand counter-drone defenses at Minot Air Base, which is a home of a bomber wing as well as a missile wing. And what they did is they solicited a purchase of a batch of handheld counter-drone electric electronic warfare guns, so laser beams. So soon, I believe we will see radar-guided, anti-drone EW guns at every critical infrastructure node. The Hoover Dam would be one of them. I mean, they have to be there, unfortunately, given the reality of what we're in. So according to Defense Blog, the 5th Contracting Squadron at Minot Air Force Base issued a June 18th RFP, request for proposal, to purchase Drone Buster Block 4 handheld light, EW beam rifles for the 91st Security Forces Group. Now, the Drone Buster is a rifle-shaped anti-drone jammer that the operator points at an unauthorized drone to disrupt it rather than shooting it down with a projectile. Drone Buster can be useful against standard FPVs, GPS-dependent drones, and drones with radio links, but apparently they are emerging FPV fiber optic drones and with no RF command link and no GPS dependency. When I worked for Rockwell Collins eons ago, one of the things we did is we worked on map matching technologies, all right, and we don't need GPS with map matching. So, again, that's just something that we can do. So, Rox, I've asked for your comment on this because, this is more in your wheelhouse than mine. I'm more of a killer guy with bombs and guns, but you were defending and taking out bombs and guns, and so you would probably where does this fall in the old spectrum? Was this going to be included, in, your MOS? I'm sorry, AFSC, or was this, where were they going to put this? Was this going to be a new field, anti-drone? Do you know?
It's kind of like with everybody. We did a lot of test missions here with all that kind of stuff. We already have the lasers, though. You know that, right?
Yeah, I knew we had lasers, but I didn't know.
Okay. Like individually issued lasers?
That I didn't know. That will take down a drone?
So I don't know about the individual issues with that picture you had me post. I don't know if that could. I'm sure it can. It looks pretty hefty enough to do so. Depending on the size, maybe not like a full force drone, and that's what a lot of people confuse with like tiny drones versus like our droned aircraft, like the bigger aircraft. I don't think it could take out one of those guys. Can't think of the name right off the top of my head. But like smaller ones that can carry like a good amount of explosives, those little helicopter, little toy looking ones, yeah, they can still carry enough to like do some damage. Definitely should be able to take out those, at least small and medium. I don't think the big ass drones though.
No, I think you're right. And it's interesting to me, will the Air Force designate an AFSC? Will it fall under security forces, or where will they put it? So we're going to be interesting to see where we go with that. Go ahead, Swamp Marine. Please make it quick as we got to wrap the show up.
Real quick, because I don't know a lot about it, but remember the summer of drones over New Jersey?
Yes.
I think that was all part of it, so that's why they couldn't say anything. And I think we're definitely further ahead than they let on by quite a bit. So that's it.
No, I wouldn't doubt that. I think I believe it was the British that just tested a weapon that will probably be on ships that is an anti-drone thing. And then much like CRAM eventually moved from being CWIS on a ship to CRAM, counter-rocket artillery munition on bases, I think you're going to see the same type of thing actually occur. So we're going to go ahead, Dr. A, ma'am.
And don't forget the Golden Dome technology. Trump's discussed it for the U.S. as well.
He said that, but I don't know what's really been done on that. All right, I've been threatening this for a while, but I'm going to apply the laser to the Republican Party next week. So one of the things you can expect me to do is I'm going to go through, I believe, and correct me if I was wrong, because I know there were Trump Force captains, but Trump had a plan on what he was going to do. So we're going to take a critical look at that plan a few years in and see where we're succeeding and where we're failing. Now, again, just in case anybody thinks I'm questioning the president, I'm not. In our system of government, it takes a Senate and a House, and he is getting zero cooperation from them. So let's take a look at the Republican Party and see how it's let us down. But again, our choice is the Communist or the Republican Party that's failing us. Just keep working to improve the Republican Party is my answer. All right, Rox, you have the quote of the day. Go ahead, ma'am, and then we will wrap unless you've got anything Southern.
No, sir.
Nothing.
Okay. All right, got it.
All right. So I posted the quote, because of your earlier question before you went live. From T.S. Eliot, you will never do anything in this world without courage. It is the greatest quality of the mind next to honor. And that's it.
So everybody think about those things, think about the virtues, and stand strong. And when you see a liberal post something that's just, one of their things that they think is hate, get after them. Just go after them completely. All right, that is all I've got for the week, so let's wrap. Southern, you have your, what time is your show?
It's at 10 p.m. on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays now.
Outstanding. All right, everybody. Colonel Maina starts at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join his show. I'm always going to speak up for him. And the Punch Bowl in the mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard is the best place to go to start your day. That's all I got. Rox is Southern, and I'll give you a call afterwards. Dr. A, I'll call you too. So, all right, talk to you guys later. Have a great week. Move forward in courage, wisdom, temperance, and